He laughed at him, mocked his pace. But what he didn't know was, sometimes the slowest steps lead to the strongest finish. This isn't just a race. It's a lesson about life, ego, and endurance. In the heart of the Evergreen Woods, where sunlight filtered gently through tall trees and birds composed symphonies of dawn, lived a variety of animals. The forest was peaceful, a place where each creature lived according to its nature without much conflict, until the hare arrived. Bruno, the hare, wasn't born in the Evergreen Woods. He came from the northern hills, a place known for high-speed chases, thrilling leaps, and non-stop racing competitions. Bruno had speed in his blood and ego in his bones. He was fast, the fastest in every forest he had ever lived in, and he made sure everyone knew it. "I'm not just a runner," he would say with a cocky grin. "I'm a blur." He would zoom past squirrels collecting nuts, scare the feathers off birds in mid-flight, and challenge deer to races only to disappear over the hilltops before they even took their second step. The forest admired his speed, but behind his back, many murmured about his arrogance. Then, there was Oliver. Oliver was a tortoise. He didn't say much. In fact, many in the forest had gone months without hearing him speak. He was steady, calm, and incredibly observant. He would spend hours sitting beside the lake, watching the ripples dance with the wind. He worked hard, carried his shell proudly, and never rushed through life. Many called him boring, some called him wise. He never reacted to either. One sunny morning, as Bruno was showing off his speed by circling the oldest tree 5 times in under a minute, he noticed Oliver walking past, head held high, as slow as ever. Bruno stopped and smirked. "Hey, Grandpa, you ever heard of running?" Oliver paused. He looked at Bruno, then at the ground beneath them. "I don't run," he said quietly. "I move." Laughter erupted from Bruno. "You move? At that pace, you'll reach the river next spring." Some animals chuckled nervously, unsure if it was polite to laugh. Others looked away. But Oliver, without changing expression, replied, "I may not be fast, Bruno, but I always reach where I set out to go." Bruno rolled his eyes. "Okay, old-timer. Let's put that to the test. You and me, a race. Tomorrow. From the old oak to the Suncrest Hill." Gasps rose in the forest. The old oak to Suncrest Hill was a long path, filled with valleys, roots, shallow streams, and rocky slopes. Oliver didn't blink. "I accept." The news of the race spread through Evergreen Woods like wildfire. By noon, the clearing near the old oak tree buzzed with anticipation. Birds perched on the tallest branches, squirrels clung to tree trunks, and foxes peeked out from the tall grass. Even the usually shy owls were awake and watching. This wasn't just a race anymore. It had become an event. Bruno the hare stretched his legs dramatically, flexing as if he were preparing for an international championship. He winked at the animals nearby and said, "Don't blink, or you'll miss the whole race." Oliver the tortoise, on the other hand, sat quietly in the shade, eyes closed, breathing slowly, as if centering himself. He had no crowd, no cheers, and no doubt. He was just present. At the stroke of dawn, the wise old owl flew down and announced, "On my call, the race shall begin." Bruno crouched into his starting position, like a thunderbolt ready to strike. Oliver, with his usual pace, stepped forward. 3, 2, 1, go! Bruno took off like lightning. Within seconds, he was nothing but a blur of dust far ahead. The crowd gasped. "Did you see that? He's already past the stream," shouted a chipmunk. Oliver had only taken 5 steps. Bruno reached the halfway point within minutes. He bounded over a fallen tree, cleared a muddy patch in one leap, and even stopped to admire his reflection in a pond. Easy win, he chuckled to himself. That turtle is probably still figuring out which foot to move first. Back near the starting point, Oliver moved slowly but steadily. Every step was deliberate. When he reached a stream, he paused, studied the flow, found a shallow part, and walked across carefully. When a fallen log blocked his path, he didn't try to climb. He walked around it, unbothered by the extra time. Animals along the path watched silently, puzzled by his pace but curious about his calm. Meanwhile, Bruno, who had now reached the base of Suncrest Hill, looked behind, and of course saw no sign of Oliver. Ridiculous, he scoffed, plopping down beneath a shady tree. I could take a nap and still win. You know what? That's exactly what I'll do. He stretched out, yawned, and within minutes was fast asleep. The forest grew quiet as Bruno snored softly under the tree. Birds flew past him without a second glance, and the breeze carried fallen leaves across his fur. The mighty hare, so confident, so certain of his win, slept peacefully, unaware that time was quietly slipping away. Miles behind, Oliver continued moving. The sun had now shifted higher in the sky. The heat was rising. The trail became steeper, and the path turned rougher. Small stones and thorns lined the edge of the road. Many would have turned back, but not Oliver. He paused, took a breath, and pressed forward. Step by step, scratch by scratch. He kept moving. He didn't think of how far he had to go. He didn't wonder if he would win. He just kept going. Along the way, he passed many of the same animals who had laughed with Bruno earlier. This time, they said nothing. Some watched in awe, some in guilt. A young rabbit whispered to his mother, "But he's not stopping." At one point, Oliver reached a narrow bridge made of fallen branches over a shallow ravine. The wood creaked beneath his feet. One wrong step and he could fall. But he didn't rush. He didn't panic. He moved carefully, eyes focused forward, and he crossed. Back at the tree, Bruno stirred. A soft breeze blew past, and his ears twitched. He blinked, rubbed his eyes, and stood up. "Wow, that was refreshing," he yawned. "Let's go finish this joke." He bounced off the tree and sprinted toward the hill. But as he climbed, his expression changed. There, at the final turn near the top, was a shape. Slow, steady, determined. Oliver. Bruno's eyes widened. "What? No way!" He pushed himself harder. Dirt kicked behind him. The wind howled in his ears. He was fast, faster than ever, but the top of the hill was closer than he expected. And so was Oliver. Oliver didn't look back. His legs trembled. His shell ached. But his eyes were locked on the glowing rock at the summit, the finish line. Bruno surged forward, inches away. And then, Oliver's front leg touched the rock. He had won. Bruno skidded to a stop beside him, panting, sweating, stunned. The forest went silent. And then, slowly, applause. Cheers, gasps, cries. Not for the hare, but for the tortoise. The animals gathered around the summit of Suncrest Hill, their eyes wide with disbelief and wonder. Some still couldn't process what had happened. The hare, the unbeatable, the legendary, had lost. And not to another hare or deer, but to the tortoise no one ever paid attention to. Bruno stood frozen beside Oliver, trying to make sense of it. "How?" he whispered. "How did you get here before me?" Oliver turned to him, his breath still heavy but calm. "Because I never stopped." Bruno looked down, ashamed. For the first time, he didn't have a joke or a comeback. He had lost not to speed, but to patience. Not to strength, but to consistency. The old owl flew to the top and addressed the crowd. Let today be remembered, not for who ran the fastest, but for who finished what they started. Because victory does not belong to the proud. It belongs to the persistent. A quiet hush fell over the forest. Then, one by one, the animals began clapping, a slow, powerful rhythm echoing through the trees. Oliver didn't puff out his chest. He didn't gloat. He simply smiled and looked toward the path he had walked. Every step, every stone, every pause, every choice. It had all led him here. Bruno, with his head bowed, walked to Oliver and said softly, "I'm sorry. I thought you were too slow to matter. But you were just too steady to lose." Oliver nodded. Fast is good, but only if you know where you're going. In the days that followed, things changed in the Evergreen Woods. Animals stopped rushing just to impress. They began helping one another along the way. Bruno started teaching young rabbits how to train with discipline instead of arrogance. And Oliver, he became the forest's quiet guide, not because he won a race, but because he proved something far greater. That in life, you don't need to rush. You just need to keep going. This story tells us that slow and steady wins the race. Success is not about how fast you run. It's about how long you keep moving forward, no matter what.